Alrighty, and mic check 1, 2, 3. Well, good morning there, people. How's it going? It's been a while since the last video discussion we had, and today I wanted to work on a video that I've held off for a while, or rather than video, I should say, a subject. And that subject here, as you can tell by sort of glancing around behind me here and seeing something that might be familiar, and that is the island sanctuary. Now, today's discussion, I kind of want to go over like a little bit of behind the history, as well as like what my initial thoughts were and things that I think can be improved, and what I particularly enjoyed or didn't enjoy about this particular content. So, without further ado, we first want to talk about like how this content sort of began and whatnot. So, this feature has been in development for quite some time, like since Shadowbringers basically was around. And basically, it was a feature that was meant to serve two purposes because there was um, two major requests that the fan base or player base, if you want to call it as such, um, were just dying to have. One being a place where you can sort of like garden and do your own like plant work and grow stuff. The second was a place where you could have minions run around in and just be part of like an ecosystem. And these were requested everywhere from the official forums to Reddit and Twitter. I don't think there was a lot of YouTube coverage over such things, but there might have been like a little bit of sprinkles of some content creators who thought that maybe it would be a neat idea to have some sort of minion wilderness or something to that effect. But as far as I know, the idea started with Reddit and the official forums before it became viral on like Twitter and stuff. And then that's when the developers really start to divulge in what they could possibly make using those two ideas that I just mentioned. And lo and behold, here in Endwalker, we got the results of their testing and their implementation, which is basically the Isle Sanctuary. Now, it's a bit different from what expectations were. And while we're on that subject of expectations, there was also a very misleading expectation that led to people's hopes getting dashed. And that was basically some people had this idea in their mind that maybe, Island Sanctuary would be a type of homestead just for them. And I mean, in essence, it kind of is a homestead, but it isn't. Um, like, there's factors that you can say make it a homestead, but what people were actually wanting was like to have a form of instance housing where they could decorate and design like their own private area. But Mr. Naoki Yoshida, big producer guy, director, he had shut that argument down way before this was even released into the Endwalker patch cycle. He had basically told, people in an interview, he said, um, you know, that this content, they want it to be something relaxing and calming, something to do, you know, as a side activity. And he said that there was no thoughts or like, you know, planning involved to make this into any sort of instance housing. So, and yeah, I know there's people who posted like mad tweets about that, and they were like very unhappy. They're like, "Oh, but he said we would be able to put like structures and buildings in this place." They're like, it's got to be. It had to have been housing. They're lying. They're deceiving us and stuff like that. And like, I'm gonna pitch an idea here. You know, as we talk about the rest of the island stuff, but let's just hold that thought for now and go one bullet point at a time. So, but I'm just for a reason I bring up this anger about it not being instance housing is that it's just part of the history of how this was brought about and how it was developed. So, so people's expectations were unreal, some of them, and others were happy. But it's kind of like this kind of content, this like I would say niche content got mixed reviews essentially. Like people, what the expectation was didn't actually end up being what it actually is. And part of that has to deal with developers' vision versus the player's vision. You know, like the developers have their own ways, their own mindset of what they feel like our request would be in game and what how it would be implemented. But it doesn't necessarily their vision doesn't necessarily reflect what the desire um, may have actually been. And this does happen a lot. I mean, especially because in Final Fantasy 14, I'm the type who doesn't mince words, as you may have noticed if you're someone who subscribes to my channel. I'm not the type to mince words, so basically, there is a language barrier because this is a Japanese developed game. It's a JRPG with MMO attached. And the misconception is that the developers, they do say they want feedback, okay? Like they've never said that they didn't want you to give an opinion and give your thoughts on content that they produce. They've never said that they didn't want that. In fact, they've encouraged it. And Mr. Naoki Yoshida himself said, "Hey, if you've got a complaint or a problem, let us know." So people have let him know, and hopefully, um, after he's taking like everything into consideration, at least as much as he can. Like I said, sorry, I have to clear my throat a little bit there, but there's this language barrier that can be a persistent problem. Like, I think there's a lot of things that get lost in translation when our community teams um, sort of interact with the developers when they bring back our feedback towards um, content. I think that they try to say things a certain way where it gets lost in meaning. And I'll be honest, you guys, as someone who's studied the language, the Japanese language, um, it is pretty easily to misspeak or mispronounce a sentence or a phrase in Japanese and have the Japanese person end up being confused by what you're asking or what you're requesting. So it's there's kind of needs to be like a lot of back and forth communication in order for it to be more clear and more precise on what it is that's being asked. Because otherwise, the Japanese person is going to scratch his head. He's going to be thinking the complete opposite. He's going to be like, something about a dog, something about trees, park, like they're gonna be really lost about like what's gonna be being said, and they might even think of you like, oh, you know, crazy Gajin talk. That's their word for basically, foreigners as Gajin, and they'll say, oh, that's crazy Gajin tick, talking. Like they don't really mean what that is they're saying. They they're saying this. It's got to be this. So I definitely think the community team needs to do a lot better at conveying translations, because a lot of stuff gets thrown out of proportion, or like it's just not understood or conceptualized in these developers' minds. And Yoshida, Naoki Yoshida he isn't completely ignorant either. Like he does understand like uh, minimal basic comprehension of English, because when you're someone as important as he is, and you're developing not only for the Eastern audience but for the West as well, you kind of have to um, and not only because he's in like the business world, right? Like the gaming industry, he has to be able to understand at least how to speak a basic level of English, and he does. So he's not completely like unaware of certain like English words and phrases. So he does understand bits and pieces of what we might be saying in English, but for the most part, we have to solely depend on his good friend and team member, Mr. Michael Christopher Koji Fox, because he's basically, um, I've said this in a previous video, he's basically our unofficial um, North America English director, Mr. Koji Fox, because he is the one who's in charge of like the localization department of Final Fantasy XIV. So he's usually the one who translates things from Japanese to English, and kind of vice versa. Like he's the first person usually Naoki Yoshida goes to if he needs to like understand something in English. He'll usually come bug Koji. He'll say like, "Hey, what's this phrase mean? What's this person say when they say that or say this?" And then Koji would be like, "Oh, that, okay, well, let me sit down and explain that to you." So, I mean, obviously, of course, yes, Square Enix is a corporation, so, you know, they have official translators for important staff members. So Naoki Yoshida does have one. Her name is Amy, and she's a very lovely lady. She does um, help Yoshida with like fan fests and like interviews and stuff like that. So he does have an official translator, but for the most part, for us players, we do have to kind of like rely on Mr. Koji Fox a lot more because Yoshida's other translator isn't just like personal for him, but it's more of like a corporate side of things. So, but anyway, enough on that because that's more off topic from our main topic here, which is a island sanctuary. So basically, you know, they got the ideas from the player base and developed Island Sanctuary as it is currently. So basically, what it is it's kind of like a farm simulator, and if people um, who really understand like what that is, essentially, what a farm simulator is you'll play out the game as if you were to basically own a farm yourself, like in real life. So you'll have crops to manage and grow, you'll have animals or livestock to care for, and then you'll be like shipping your goods and making, money and all that kind of stuff. That's basically um, what, in essence, this island sanctuary kind of is it's basically, you know, something of a farming simulation. So if you're familiar with that, so like think of like games like Harvest Moon, um, Farmville, uh, Animal Crossing sort of a deal. Like that's kind of in essence what Island Sanctuary is in context. And it's not a bad thing. Like it can be relaxing to do in like spare time when nothing else is going on in the patch or in the game at the moment and you just aren't really feeling like in a chatty mood, or like no one's online in your free company or whatever group you're in, so you need something to fill your time up. Then that's kind of what this island sanctuary here does, is it kind of acts as like a gap filler to just do time to like develop your island and reap benefits and stuff. And as for the benefits you can reap in Island Sanctuary, you get these currencies. I know, right? That we got so many currencies in game. It's kind of overused and overdone at this point. But yeah, we get a separate currency here called cowries, and you have two of them here. You have, you know, your seafarers and your islander, and they both have a different purpose. Seafarer being for um, multi-purpose currency, and then the islander one being just generic, and it can be used for little miscellaneous things, which I actually think that they should be reversed, to be honest. Like, I think the Islander calories, because they're a lot easier to accumulate than your seafarers, and the fact that the seafarers is more precedent than the islander one is a little bit awkward in my opinion. Like they really should repurpose the islanders cowrie and make them more useful to us, or like maybe even make it so that if you have an overabundance of islanders, you can trade it in for the seafarer currency, you know? Like, I feel like that would be a much better compromise than just having to rely on seafarers, because seafarers, they're not easy to produce. We basically get like two challenge log entries, and they only reward such a little amount, like, and then you have to do the workshop, which the workshop can be done every day, of course, but on average the max that you're gonna make a day, I've heard reportings, is only up to like 2k. So 2,000 of these blue things a day is all you could manage a day. Or if you wanted to deck out your workshop to work for the entire week, then you could potentially make like a max of like 10k of these seafarers currency in a week. But the workshop is the only way, besides those challenge log things, which there's only two, like I said, and they don't reward a very high amount, to earn this seafarer currency. So it's very slow compared to the latter, the islanders, where you can, with the islander, you can basically just farm your life away in this grand and glorious sanctuary that you make, and then turn in whatever materials you have excess of into um, the little mammoth NPC that's down here in your little like guest area. Like I think it's called your um hangout or whatever, you know, your hideaway, the little shed thing, but it's not exactly like it doesn't feel like it's made for you specifically, but it's more of like a counter that you check into and check out, you know. But yeah, there's a mammoth down there in that station area, and you just turn in those excess materials, which you can farm like on the island materials, like all day if you want, all week if you want, like just anytime, and you can farm for as long as you want. And then when you feel like you have enough, or when you're done, or tired of doing that, then you can turn in to the little mammoth guy down there, and he'll give you the seafarers currency. Or sorry, not seafarer, but islanders. And that's why I'm saying, the blue and the green, their purposes should be reversed, solely because of that, because the greens you can farm, the blue ones you can't farm. So, and the blue ones like are used to obtain rewards as well, like rewards that people actually want. So that's why I'm a little iffy on that. Whereas the green one, you could just accumulate like a lot. So they really need to think about a better balance between those two currencies, because right now it just doesn't feel right. So it just feels very unbalanced. So I hope that they'll take in consideration how to work that out and fix that. Make it so that either, the green can be used for more stuff, more purposes, or just have it so that if you have too much green, then you can turn the green into the blue seafarer currency. So that way you really don't feel like, you know, you're just wasting time for little back in return. So, but anyway, I want to talk about my initial thoughts before we go into suggestions and ideas on how to improve and stuff. But when I first jumped into the island sanctuary, I thought, oh, this is pretty interesting. This is pretty neat. You get your own little island all to yourself, or, you can have a friend come and visit too. And you can just scatter about the island and collect things, or, you can even capture, some of the wildlife and tame it, like what I have right over here. So these are all the animals I've captured, tamed, and, pacified, and I care for them. you know, like that's what I'm meaning by the whole farm simulator, it's that you actually do have to care for the beasts and animals that you take in. So, you have to feed them and you can pet them, take, screenshots with them and all that fun stuff. And that's another purpose of this island, of course, is to be able to take a screenshot, you know, places. And there's like different locales that they placed on the island for you to sort of have a look around and just kind of enjoy the place a bit. But the only problem with that is that you're really not able to like fully enjoy the immersiveness of this place, because unfortunately, because this runs on like back end servers that are shared, I guess, with what people are calling the housing servers. Like, I don't know where they got that idea. This, to me, sounds like a straw man argument, like a myth that just, you know, was made up because, someone was salty about not being able to log into their island sanctuary when they wanted to because it got congested. So I don't believe that is the case, that this is tied to housing servers. I think that's just a superstition, a conspiracy that people made up just because they were mad and they wanted to justify, something to be mad over. But really, I just think that this is on a separate instance server, and what we know about Square Enix's instance servers is that they can't handle a lot of stress. Like, we learned that lesson the hard way with Stormblood. Like, when Stormblood released the expansion Stormblood of Final Fantasy XIV, like, their instance server could not handle over a limit of like 200 players, 200 plus players. Like, the instance would crash and like things would glitch, get stuck, people would get stuck, and like quests would break, they would freeze. Like, there's a reason why people call Raubon Savage Raubon Savage, because, you know, basically no one could get past that quest because, the instance kept crashing constantly, or the quest itself kept crashing. So really, that's what I think that's the case of being here with the Island Sanctuaries, that the instance um, can't hold a lot of stress, so they limited not just your time in here, but they also like limited like how many people can enter and visit in an instance. I believe the limit they have for this particular instance server is a max of like 30 players, which isn't like a big significant number. So, and like when you have like a dozen or so players like trying to all jump into this instance server so they can, mess around with all the stuff that's in here, you know, then yeah, it causes problems. So, and this is also in the open world instance servers too. Like, they have a hard limit that they place in the open world instance servers. Like, they divide it into three like separate instances, which can only cap at 100 players basically, or like 200 players or something like that. So just a lot of like limiting things because they're trying to prevent stuff from breaking, like, and a lot of that has to do with just this game engine in general. This game engine in general, just like, it's just not very good. And I hope that they can eventually fix it, but that's kind of like grasping at straws. But we'll see, you know. Maybe they'll pull some magic out of their magic hat and make the instance servers a lot more stable and more um able to handle things better. And in fact, to kind of alleviate some of that stress, like, they did add new data center servers so that, they can spread people out more, which it's really kind of hard to do that. And, you know, I hate to say it, but the the incentives they've given to space people out is not the greatest incentives. Like basically their incentive to make like people spread out is like, hey, there's this empty server here, you can move there for free, we won't charge you any money to move there for free. There's also lots of housing there, maybe you've been waiting to get a house, you can go there. Like, to me, that's just like like a pretty shady way of dealing with it. Like, honestly, if you really want me to, like, abandon a server or something, then you're gonna need to promise that I'm guaranteed that house and guaranteed that my friends will want to come with me. Like that's the thing, how do you convince people and their friends to move? You really just can't. Like it's really hard to do that. And what I think they could do, other than what they're doing instead, is, you know, maybe, just maybe, they could say that if you move to this other server, you know, not only will you be guaranteed a house, you'll get this and the experience bonus points that they have for newly created servers and such. They can also give you guild incentive. Like, imagine if they gave you an item that you could sell off for like 1,000,000 gil. Okay, that would incentivize people to move for sure. So not only if they guaranteed a house and they guaranteed the experience bonus points, but if they gave an item that you could sell, if they gave an item to you that you could sell for 1,000,000 gil, yeah, then people are gonna like say, okay, yep, I'll take it. And that will space people out. But really, at the end of the day, though, there's like a lot of people in this place we call a world. So I don't think that what they're doing is going to really fix the problem at all, really. So I think they need to give that idea up that adding more servers is going to fix that problem because it's not. It's really not. In fact, it'll just get worse. So I think they really need to just fix the back end of their code of this engine and just either tack on like something more to it that will make it work, or um, just merge, this engine with a more polished one, basically. Like connect it to an engine that can actually perform well and perform without these like issues that this current engine's having. So, but that's just a rant, sorry. Anyway, the next thing that coming into this that I liked with my initial thoughts is that um so I liked, getting the animals and stuff. That was pretty fun. Like who doesn't like having animals, especially if you can find a tiger and it can become yours. So, or like an elephant or something like that. And then I also like that you could change the layout of the buildings. So that was something that I brought up earlier, but these buildings, you can change the layout of them to look certain ways. Granted, again, you still have to spend um, this seafarer's currency here, which is very scarce compared to the other islander one here. Um, which I think, again, like I said, they really need to find a good balance between the two and make them equal and make it so that they can work in tandem with each other rather than against each other. Or, I mean, even hell, just add more challenge log entries too. Like, make it so, like, there's a challenge log entry for actually doing the manual labor yourself instead of, assigning the mammoths to, like, and that's one of the perks they gave you too when you max your island out at like 10, is that you can assign the mammoths to do all the work for you, and then you don't have to, like, all you have to do is just like log in and, like, collect everything. So that's one of the routes you can go, but again, if you do things automated way, it's still costing you this blue seafarers the currency, which again, like I said, the scarcity really isn't helping matters, so they need to fix that for when they do a next update for this island sanctuary. I feel like they need to find a better balance between them and make it so that if you're not able to get enough blue currency, then um, the island, the green one, can make up for that, and you can be used to boost basically your yield of blue seafarers currency. Or, like I said, just add more challenge log entries, like have it so that if you do things manually, for example, let's say right now they have one for collecting stuff and for shipping. Like, let's say that they put one for, like, gardening, for you harvesting. Well, maybe not, because that's part of the collecting thing, but for basically like planting and watering, for example. Let's say that they had a log for if you like plant a certain number of times, then you've basically earned like 2,000 calories, basically. Or if you feed your animals a certain amount of time, then that one that you like 1,000 calories. So they just need to make it so that, you know, it's easier rather than difficult to get those seafarer blue currency, because right now it's more efficient to get the green one, and the green islander currency really can't be used for very much. Like, in fact, I'll show you. So this is, you know, exporter guy. So you want to earn like calories. Okay, so you can turn in a whole bunch of this and you'll get like a whole ton of green islander. And then if you go to the Mr. Shop here, so here's the islander store. Like, this is all you basically get with for the green ones. It's kind of silly. Like, materia is already easy to get a hold of. Like, why do we need yet another place to basically waste to get materia? It kind of doesn't make sense. The high cordial, that one's okay. That actually is helpful. Glamour Prison, we already have that in the Grand Company. I don't think like this stuff and the Dispellers, that's already in the Grand Company, which is easy enough to get from there as it is, you know. Plus, they're a really cheap thing to make. They're a level 15 um, recipe for crafters. So, like, this is really kind of unnecessary to me. And then, of course, silly fireworks. Like, man, the amount of times we get thrown fireworks at us is just way too much, man. Like, I feel like they kind of do it on purpose as a joke, but it's funny the first time, but after you've done it so many times, it's really just kind of annoying. So I really don't appreciate that they keep doing that. Like, sure, it's fun to make different ones and stuff, but save that for like seasonal event stuff. Like, putting it in as a in-game mechanic over and over is actually kind of an insult. So I think they really need to take that away and stop doing that. And then, yeah, sure, there's a few housing furnishings here, and that's okay too. That's not terrible, but where are we gonna put all these? Because some of these are outdoor, as you can see. Like, and a lot of people don't even have a house to uh, to themselves because of how their housing is so limited. So that's another thing that's insulting. But like I said, I have a suggestion, and we're getting there to that point. But I want to first talk about other stuff before we get to that. So, and if you just give me a minute here, I'm gonna, kind of clear my throat out for a minute here because I'm kind of losing my voice a bit. So give me just a moment here. Apologies. Okay, sorry about that. So, anyway, yeah, so like I was saying, it's kind of a bit of a insult in a way that this stuff is here, but then when you look at the blue, seafarer stuff, they have all this other initiative stuff, including again the materia, which is so easy to get, and then these dyes too. Now, granted, these dyes are special, and the only other place you can get them is the Ishgard restoration area, but I don't think it's really necessary to keep reusing that. But the other thing is these exclusive wares, as they call it. There's a bunch of mounts, hairstyles, music, minion, the usual things that we prefer to have. And then there's, glamour outfit too. Yet more furnishings, but the housing is still a problem. But like I said, I want to get over some things before I make a suggestion. But yeah, it's really bad. Sorry, my throat is just not cooperating tonight very well. Been kind of having a little bit of issues with the cold weather, but essentially, um, I don't like how the currency situation is handled, but I did like the landmark stuff here. I liked that they have that available for you to build. And that's the other thing, is that you do feel a sort of sense of accomplishment, because you put in the effort to make these landmarks a thing and get these places to look the way they do. Of course, your mammoths do all the heavy lifting, but you still kind of provide them the materials to do the heavy work, so it's kind of like a 50-50. But I did like that you could have um, these landmarks put up, and they added another one with this newest update too, which I definitely would like to get a hold of and just to see, kind of what it looks like. See if it's maybe something I might consider using, but never a guarantee. And then there's also swimming and diving here in this area too. So, if you like to swim or dive, then you can do that here in this island too. So like there's multiple things you can do here. So you do have options. And here's an example of the minion thing. So I have the clockwork minion here and the other little minions scattered about here in my main headquarters. And also up there with my animal pin. I have some minions there, and down on the beach, like you can put minions everywhere essentially on your island, except for like areas that are beyond the home sweet hideaway here on the map. Like you can't just throw them out to the wild area here, but you can put them basically anywhere in the hideaway. So that is one of the positive things I liked besides getting the animals and stuff. But definitely the currency situation I don't like, and the fact that you earn so little of it is kind of irksome. Plus the experience. Okay, so the island experience you earn as well. I don't really like the fact that by doing this workshop thing here, you earn more experience than if you do like the manual labor of like helping your animals and your crops that you grow. Like that's another bad decision I think they made with this content here, is that they figured, you know, that it would just be better like that way, I guess. But I feel like they need to balance that out though to the experience that you gain. So because right now doing things manually doesn't net you a lot of experience unless you basically farm until your eyes bleed, until your fingers start to develop calluses and all that. Like, it's kind of insane to me that they expect you to spend so much time in this, but yet they don't even give you like enough time to sit in this instance because their greatest fear that it's gonna break and cause problems. And like I said just a few minutes ago, um, they could easily solve this by fixing their back end or merging this engine with an engine that can actually handle the stress and the load to sort of take off whatever problems this old crusty, I don't know how other nice words to put it, but this old crusty dusty rusted engine just isn't really cutting it anymore. So one can only hope or cope, you know, whichever one you prefer using. But that's just one of those things they need to really work on. Now, that's basically my initial thoughts. So, now we can talk about suggestions, which I've already given a few. They need to balance out the currencies. They need to balance out the experience earned. And they should probably get rid of some of those rewards and exchange them for better rewards. Like, instead of putting the dies, those dies showed you, in the blue seafarers, those should go in the green because the green, like I said, is easier to obtain. So we could just get more of those dies by doing the green stuff. So that's one idea that they could do to vastly improve this sanctuary, which honestly doesn't feel like one sanctuary. It feels like a chore list more than a sanctuary, a task list that you have to constantly be doing if in order for it to stay up to date. And that's one of my biggest concerns with this content is that it's going to become dead content because they're not really thinking about this stuff that I'm bringing up, they're not really thinking too critically on it. And like, I know they spent a lot of time and resources on this content because of like how much stuff is in it and how much you can do in this island sanctuary. So that does tell me they spent considerable amounts of time and resources into this content, but I feel like there's a very clear danger of this content becoming dead and never looked at again because the fact that we're not seeing more like care put into it. Like, it feels like they shoved it onto us and said, okay, here you go, here's your content, go crazy. And then said, oh, by the way, we'll we'll look at it every now and then, but no promises that it will be upgraded or um, changed in any significant way. And I think that's pretty clear with this newest update that they did too. Is like they really didn't change a whole lot with this newest update. They just added some more carrots on the end of the stick to dangle in front of us and said, here you go. Now do what you did before, and you'll get these nice little presents, basically, from us without actually looking at these problems which I just brought up. So I think they really shouldn't abandon this content. Like, granted, yes, I've said in the beginning that this is a niche type of content, and it's meant basically for casual play. It's not meant for Mr. Mid-maxer who wants to be the best farmer that he can be. It's not meant for the person who feels like it's an honor and a privilege to have an island that they're just going to show off to everyone. Like, it's not. It wasn't designed that way. And Mr. Yoshida even said that. He said, "No, why are you guys like trying to hurry through all this?" He's like, "Take your time. This is supposed to be a casual experience. Take your time, enjoy it, take it in." But like I've outlined, it's hard to enjoy this when there's limitations and it's unbalanced. And like I said, I don't mince words. So I'm gonna tell them the truth that they are asking for. Like, remember, I told you that earlier in this video discussion. Okay, they asked for feedback, so here's their feedback. So, and I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. You know, like if there's a problem, there's a problem, and it needs to be looked at so that it's not a problem anymore. That's called communication, and it's called getting things done the correct way. So, some of people, and some of you may take offense to the way I say that, but at the end of the day, haters are gonna hate. But I feel there's room for improvement on this island sanctuary. There needs to be things they need to look at before, they just rinse and repeat and wash it all over again, because this content will become dead content if that is the case. If they're not going to continue to show their care into this content, like I, like I was saying, and I know I say that a lot, but they have put a lot of time and resources into this. I can tell that. I can tell that they did, and that they really want us to enjoy this piece of content here. But if they're not going to show the same commitment, then what even is the point? That's what I'm basically getting at here. What's the point if they don't show the same consideration that we do, the same care? Then what's the point? You know? And if they can't answer that, like, what's the point? Then maybe they just need to not update this content anymore. And like I said, that's my fear, is that this will become dead content. And to give you an example of dead content, let's look at the fishing thing that they added. Okay, the boat. The fishing where you take a boat ride and you go fishing. Completely dead content now. This was introduced back earlier, before Endwalker. Like, this was introduced in Shadowbringers, I believe. And now it's dead content. They have not come back to it since Endwalker started and made any such adjustments or improvements. I mean, yeah, they added another reward, And that's the same thing that they did here with Island Sanctuary. They added a new reward, a new carrot on the stick to dangle in front of you and say, "Here, come get it." But you have to work for it. You're gonna work for it with an awful grind, that we don't want to balance. So you tell me. If you're against my idea, then you tell me better. What's your solutions? If you have better ideas, then please let me know. Tell me in my comment section what your ideas are, because I feel like these developers don't have ideas. They figure that they're just going to keep throwing us a bone, and that will satisfy, but it really doesn't. Let me tell you, it really doesn't. And it doesn't really incentivize people to come back and do these contents, or even to stay a subscriber to their game, for that matter. And that's one of the problems I've said before in other videos I've made, is that content sustainability, repeatability is not done very well. And that's really going to hurt this game in the long run. So they need to really, really up their game. They need to go into game mode. Like, take into consideration matters from a player's perspective. And in fact, Mr. Naoki Yoshida says he encourages, his staff to play the game, and that they do make characters to play the game. Although, from what it sounds like, is they only play mainly with each other on like a test server, a development server. So I think what we should be challenging the developers to is we should challenge them to play this game from a player's perspective. We should challenge them to say, "Hey, I want to watch you play your game from start to finish. No hacks, no dev power. Just play it as if you were playing it as a player, and then you'll see. Okay, you'll see. It'll be a real eye-opening experience to them. They'll be like, "Oh my gosh, I never noticed this problem was like this before. You guys really dealt with this and you didn't say anything? You didn't tell us? Why isn't anyone saying anything about X, Y, and Z?" And then we'll just be face palming and being like, we've been saying for years, but nobody was getting the message. So, as you can tell, I'm very passionate about that, yes. But, yeah, we've been saying a lot of these things for years. And if they could just, you know, walk a mile in our shoes, that's all I ask, is if they could walk a mile in our shoes, I guarantee you 100% they would start to take better care and consideration to the things like what I've discussed here. And they'd really be thinking about, oh, you know, this is a real issue, isn't it? This is kind of boring, isn't it? Why did we think this was a good idea? Let's revisit this. Okay, let's revisit this dead content. Let's find better ways to manage it, other than to keep adding, you know, so and so reward to make players want to do it. Because it can work some of the time, but it's not going to work all of the time. Like one time will work fine, but if you keep doing it over and over and over again, the treadmill becomes a cycle, and that cycle becomes dull. So that's my major concern with Island Sanctuary here, is that it's going to just spiral into this repetitive cycle and become dead content like other pieces of content have already proven to become in this game. And that'd be a real shame because, like I said, I can see that they really cared and put devotion and time and resources into this specific content. So I know that there's some amount of care, but it seems like that care kind of went out the window like right after this content was released to us. Like all of a sudden, like it just disappeared, and now we're on the treadmill, the never ending treadmill. And I really think they should look into the balancing of the currencies and the balancing of earning experience here. The rewards are nice. I'm not saying that the rewards are bad, other than, the materia and stuff. Like I said, some of that stuff is kind of insulting that they keep throwing in when they know that it affects other things that they've been putting off or neglecting. So, but generally, the rewards are not terrible, but there just needs to be more thought put into how obtaining them goes about, because not everyone has the time nor the willpower to vote hours into a farm simulator like this. And in fact, they just won't do it. They'll say, fuck it, I'm done with this content. I don't want to touch it ever again. So, like, they'll just get frustrated and they won't want to come back to this content ever again. You'll have like a minuscule, like 2% of your entire player base that will come back just to do this content. And surely because of a piece of glamour, or a mount, or a minion. Just a small, tiny 2% of the player base, because all the others got frustrated long ago and left. Just like with other content, They said, I got mine, I got what I wanted, I'm done, I don't want to be in this content anymore. Screw it. My friend my company wants to do it. Someone that's new on my friends list, the company wants to do it. Oh, well, too bad, I already did it. I don't want to do this anymore. Good luck, though. Have fun. I tried it. It was okay. Whatever. Like, that's how these player base is. You know, as long as they got what they wanted, they're happy. And they're not going to go back and do it again. Like, it doesn't matter if there's a new player or not. And that's the double-sidedness, too, of this community. If you haven't noticed, looking at you guys, you content creator, other content creators and stuff. and you're following cults. I'm looking at you guys. See, because they have this duality of like, yeah, sure, come in, new players. You're always welcome. Oh, you can't do this content? Oh, I'm so sorry for you. I'm so sorry. The new player asks, well, can you come help me do it? They're like, oh, I wish I could, but I can't. I'm busy right now. You know, I, I, I gotta go do this other thing, you know. Yeah. Yeah, I'm calling you guys out. Hey, I'm calling you out. Trust me. Like I said, I don't mince words. I get straight to the bullshit when I see it. But anyway, that's problems and suggestions. And then there's one more suggestion, okay? This would be a ground-breaking suggestion here. This would solve the incentive issue. This would be the ultimate carrot on the stick for this content that would push people to come back in and do it. They would put up with the aggravating frustration for this suggestion if they did this suggestion. And if you were paying attention, if you didn't just space out, if you actually did watch up to this point in my discussion video, you know exactly what I'm talking about, what I'm going to say, don't you? I can see the grinning on your face now, the beaming smile. You know what I'm going to say, don't you? Yes. Okay. This is what needs. This would be the ultimate way to reward the player for doing this content. If they add a house for us, only for us, the player. Okay. So, on the very last update that they do, this expansion for this content, if they added a house specifically for us, the player, that we build, okay? So, like how we're building all these structures out here and everything, and these landmarks, and customizing them. If they let us do that, let us build our own house, player house, and where we can choose what furnishings go inside it, you know? And like have landmarks, like these landmarks here, like we can have landmarks on top of having our own house, then yeah, that will be the ultimate carrot on the stick that they could possibly dangle in front of us to make us do this content. Because not only is that a free house, okay, it's going to be a customizable house, but adding in the landmarks too. And they've already added gardening here too, so there you go. We'd have a garden, we'd have landmarks, and we'd have our own house. And no matter how long it takes to get there, or how frustrated people get that it's taking so long, adding a house as a reward with all the perks included that this island gave us, guess what? That would make people love this content. That would make people want to do this content. They would want to come here. And yeah, I know it's gonna crash the instance server. But that's a good thing. That's a good thing because it means that people are actually doing this content. They're not letting it die. So that is the ultimate reward they could possibly give us out of this. And if they do that by the end of this expansion, okay, or even if they do that, in 7.1, like patch 7.1, even if they do it then, that would be the best damn reward we've ever gotten from content. Have our own little instance house area. Like, let's say that we've developed this island all the way to the possible highest rank that it can go for development. And then, like, Merwib, who's the one who actually gave these islands to Tataru's empire. Let's say she gives us a call, or she gives Tataru a call, say, hey, you worked really hard to develop this place and make it thrive. So we want to reward you for that by giving you this separate island off of the coast from this island you just developed, and we're going to give it to you to live on. Like, this is going to be completely your island and nobody else's. It's just your island for doing this service for, our people, for developing an island for our benefit. you know, they could easily write it out in a scenario like that. And that would be perfectly okay. We'd accept that, We'd be like, oh my God, they actually did it. Oh my word, they gave us our own island house. Like, seriously, people would be so stoked and so excited. Like, and yeah, like I said, forgetting about the technical problems that would come from the instance server. Like, that would be a good problem. Okay. That's example of a good problem when players are jumping in to do something because they want to have that ultimate reward and putting up with it no matter how badly balanced or how much time actually has it requires to complete. They will do it for that type of reward. That will be the perfect incentive, the icing on the cake, the cherry on top. That would be the best reward they could give us for doing all this island sanctuary stuff. And you know what? They might just do that too, for all we know. That might be something that they were building this all up to, is that we did all the work, we worked hard to get this far in the island. We developed it, we gave it a purpose, and now they say, because you did all that, here's your reward. This island over here, you see this island over here? It's yours. Go ham. Make it however you want. It's your paradise. Like, that would be to me like a huge thank you. Like saying like a huge thank you from the developers if they said, "Thank you for playing the game. Thank you for playing this content for us and testing it and giving us feedback. This is yours now. This isolated island separate from this island you built up and everything. This separate island over here, it's yours. It's yours to make it how you want. It's your paradise." So that I think would be awesome, okay? And I really hope that they do that, but I'm not gonna like promise anything to you guys, you know, because ultimately what it comes down to, you know, is not what content creators like me say, you know, because we can overhype things and put expectations or things out there, but ultimately it's still up to the developers to make it happen. So if they decide to go that route, then I will sing their praise. And I will never, like, have a reason to doubt them, like, ever again, if that's how they go about this reward for doing all this island stuff. Like, is if they gave us our own paradise where we can design and build it up to be our home, you know, after we did all this stuff for Tataru, you know, her empire, like her being just like the good mob boss that she is, just saying, you know, you're my very special right hand man, Mr. Warrior of Light. I want to make sure that you are taken care of. So here's this land which Merwib gave to me to give to you. So I think that would be a really um big win for the developers of this content here in this game, is if they made that for sure the ideal reward after doing all this stuff, then that would be a huge and major win. But like I said, it is up to them. This is their game. It's their vision. They can just say no and continue down the cycle, like I said, but sadly that means this content will be dead, and that would be such a shame and such a wasted effort and wasted like amount of resources, which could have probably been used for other things to improve other things in the game. But we will see, you know, time will tell us all things. So I'm just putting the suggestion out there though. Like, this is the one suggestion that could turn things in their favor for this type of content here. And like I said, no matter how long it takes, no matter um, how unbalanced things may look, people will deal with it. They'll still complain. Trust me, they'll still complain about it the whole way through. But once they have that instance island house of their own that they can decorate and build to however they like with landmarks, you know, you'll never see them ever complain about housing again. Like, they'll have their own house because they did this island sanctuary content. that will kill two birds with one stone. Basically, that's what that would accomplish. Two birds killed with the one stone. People got the minion content that they wanted, plus Farm Simulator, and they got a house out of it. So, but anyway, it's been a fun discussion. I'm glad that you guys may have been here, or that you will be here to watch this video, hopefully. And like I said before in my last video, if you want to help me out as a creator, consider giving the thumbs up symbol, the like symbol, the bottom of the video. That helps this video get pushed up the old algorithm, helps it get seen, and it helps this message I put out get to the developers, and in turn, we all reap and prosper from the benefits. Anyway, guys, that's Deus Games here, signing out. Hope you all have a good day, good weekend, and best of luck to you in continuing your island trek. See ya all. Have a good one.